Okay, and I am thrilled today to have here Terry Ross and Tara Hoban to talk about the developmental writing scale. Not only are they supreme professionals, but also amazing human beings. And so they're going to talk to us today about the developmental writing scale. I'm going to go back a couple of slides here before I have them fully introduce themselves, but I just want to show you how you can get to that developmental writing scale. It is a copyrighted document. So one way to access that copyrighted document is to go to your account on My Infinitec, and I'll drop a link in the chat window here. It's also linked in the slides, but if you go to that link that shows on the Infinitec part 1 of that training, and once that screen loads, if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see developmental writing scale linked down here under take a quiz. And once you click on developmental writing scale, it'll bring up that document and you'll be able to download it. But just know that, again, that's a copyrighted document, but through our membership through My Infinitec, that is accessible to any of you, including that full training that's on there. So I am going to go back to the slides here and actually turn it over to Terry and Tara to have them fully introduce themselves and then tell us about their experiences that with using this developmental writing scale.
Okay, you want to go ahead, Terry?
No, you go.
Well, my name is Tara Hoban, and I'm a special ed teacher at Congdon Park School. So I work with grades K through 5. And I'm in a resource room model, but have all kinds of students at all levels. And I do have Terry, who comes in once a week, and she's in my room a little bit along with some other special ed rooms. But I get to work with her and she gets to help me figure out this writing piece. And I really enjoyed the sheet that she shared with me, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So glad to be here.
Hi, I'm Terry Ross. I'm a occupational therapy assistant, COTA, in the Duluth schools. And I work itinerant preschool to high school. That was the middle school bell. And Tara, like Tara said, her and I share some students, and usually I'm working on the fine motor part of it, and Tara's working more on the language, and this just was a nice teaming effort that we've been able to do.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to say that Terry shared this developmental writing scale this year. And we do have some examples, but maybe we want to talk about the scale because I believe, did you go to a training on this, Terry?
So actually, Julie Ray was sending out some pushes for Infinitec, and this was one of them. And I saved it in my email probably for a month. And I originally thought it was going to be more about the motor part of writing, but it really is about the language part, which to me is kind of was kind of like an aha moment, like, oh my gosh, this is the missing piece, because it seems like we're getting a lot of our students, we work on the letter formation and the line placement and the spacing, and then they get to a copying stage, and then I'm kind of like, okay, my work is done. They've done the motor part of it. And then I have families or teachers, and they're like, well, they still can't write. And so this was like that missing link, which I've known this before, but it just kind of, I don't know, hearing it again, it really clicked. So it's a 2-part Infinitec video, and it's really nice. You can pause it. The instructor is a really great speaker. And this scale that Julie shows kind of puts a developmental sequence of how children learn to draw and then write about their drawings. And I think we all see this in kindergarten, you know, where they're making the cute pictures and then they're putting funny little scribbly lines and they tell you this big long story, and then how that kind of grows from there. And Tara, maybe you can talk more about. So then Tara and I, during some of our sessions with students we share, started doing this with some kids, and it was really interesting. Like, I think you have a group of maybe 4 or 5 first graders, and just like how they're all at different places in this. And
yeah, I thought what was interesting to me and helpful was that I feel like I kind of get stuck on the IEP objectives and the goal. And usually they're just like, spelling and then, writing a sentence and not really looking at this developmental, like more of the just creative side and just letting them go and analyzing it. I'm always so worried about, we have to get to that, sentence writing and, capitalization, punctuation. So this was a good reminder to me, and I actually keep a copy of the scale. I try to keep it at my table now just to remind myself that, we should take a little time, and free write and let them tell us what they're saying if they're at that stage. And then free write as an older student too. But just to kind of try to get out of that structure piece. It seems like we don't really have enough time in the day. We spend a lot of our time with reading and trying to squeeze math in and get this structured writing. So I think that to me has been helpful. And it helps to have Terry coming in and helping me too. So, but anyhow, yeah, I thought it was helpful as just like a quick reminder to let these kids just be writing. I don't know if that makes sense.
Tara, I think it hits at that engagement piece. Like, I know when I go to work with a kid, writing is sometimes a trigger for kids to, for behaviors. And it's not a super fun subject usually. So like I have in the past, like try to play I Spy or, make it more of a game. And I mean, this just like they're writing what they care about. And the person presenting in the video talks about that, like how, kids usually start writing, their first words are like mom and love. And we all kind of see that in some of the examples, like some of the writing is about their friends. And
yeah, it's interesting to see what they're thinking about versus, just the language and the structure of a sentence. But yeah, you want them to enjoy writing too, because it does get so busy in their classroom. So to try to foster that creativity and love of writing. Should we take a peek at that first example? So this was a first grade student, but so Terry, I think you initiated this one, right?
Mm-hmm. I think this was maybe the first time that we tried it, just to kind of get a baseline of where the kids were at with their writing. And this is a friend of ours that just is a picture drawer anyway. So, but just to see what this student did on their own, because like I said before, we had been doing a lot of copying. So you can see that this student is writing about their dog and their other classmates. Mm-hmm. And it's not really well organized, you can see. So then we were going back to the scale and comparing, like, oh, where do you think, this is? Like, it obviously is past the drawing and scribbling stage. There are definitely, 2 to 3 intelligible words. And some of them are related. So maybe they're like at a 7. So I think it's nice to have just a guide to tell parents, like we have a lot of scales for reading and for math, and maybe there's more scales for writing that I don't know about, not being in the gen ed classroom, but for our special ed students, I think I really like this to have a guide as like how far they've come and where they might go to.
Right. And then we also included so had the student tell us, what does your story say? And she said, my dog Ivy, play Mark, play with me and Ray. So it's just nice to kind of do that afterwards, just to see, does anything match up? What is she thinking when she's writing this? So I thought that was kind of interesting. Should we take a look at the next slide?
Mm-hmm.
It's a little blurry, but so this is an older student, and we use the voice to text with the headset. He does like to do that, and is pretty fluent in that way. So you can see how much different it is. What would you say about this one, Terry, on the scale?
Boy, I would say he's more like up towards the like paragraphs.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in the 13, like more at the top of the scale.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, like 13, 14-ish.
Right. Yes. Yeah, let's go back to that again, Julie. So, yeah, I mean, I think it does look like it's around 13 or 14, which just tells us, a little more where he's at with paragraph writing, but
So one thing in the Infinitec video, the instructor does a nice job of talking about how students who using alternative pencils. And so some students are using alphabet letters, like a physical letter to put some things together. Or Tara just talked about how this student did voice typing versus printing with a pencil. So she goes into more detail about what kind of options there are for students who aren't traditional writers.
right. And then we use the read and write option after, because often he'll be typing without any punctuation or capitalization. And when we use that read and write by text help, and then he listens to it, then he goes back and he's adding his punctuation, but it's still a free write for him. But so that's helpful for him. How about our next example, which I think is our last one, right?
I think so.
Okay. So this was another one of I believe it was our first grader. He said, we did go to the Sonic 2. We did go to the bad guys. I don't see any words though on this one.
No, so that's more like the letter strings.
Mm-hmm.
So, more at the like 3,
4 maybe.
3 to 4 level.
So stringing of letters into what they think are words, but not really any spaces, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. I don't know if it's helpful to see the examples, but just I feel like it's just a quick, if they could do this a little bit every day, helpful for us to, like we said, try to create a little more interest in writing and enjoyment, but yet at the same time giving us like an idea where they're at developmentally.
And then this tells me, like, maybe in my structured OT session, I'm seeing the student, spacing and line placement, and then I'm looking to this and like, oh, is that carrying over to their daily writing? So, yeah, this is just a good all around engaging, fun activity, but also a good learning tool.
All right. Questions, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. So anyone who's here, feel free to unmute yourselves and ask a question, make a comment, share your own experiences, or if you'd rather, you can of course type something in the chat window. I will read it aloud to the group if you'd prefer that way. But yeah, feel free to jump right in.
Hey, maybe I missed this at the beginning, but do you use this like for IEP goals or for tracking their growth on goals or objectives?
Good question. We really haven't yet, or I haven't. I don't know if you have, Tara.
No, not as writing an objective based on this, but I think it helps us when we're, looking at, especially like a progress report, what they're doing when they're writing. Like if we had a sentence writing objective, maybe it would help us to give a little data about where they're at. Would you say, Terry?
Mm-hmm. I think it'll help me too when I am reporting to parents at the IEP what I'm seeing motor wise, but it will give me an idea of what to tell parents, like language wise, what the student's doing. I especially am finding like some students in the level 3 DCD classes that they can copy anything, but they still can't write. And the parents are like, you can't change your service. They can't write yet. And I'm like, well, they can, but it gets to be more the language and they don't get it. And I think this would be helpful for them.
Yeah, I'm going to just jump in with a comment while other people are formulating what they're going to share with the group or ask. But I just love how straightforward it is. And I personally am a really linear thinker. And so to be like this is a hierarchy and our kid's going to be jumping around a bit, of course. But to be like, okay, if they're consistently here, this is what we can expect to see next and what we can sort of direct towards. So I just love how clean and straightforward it's essentially like a summary of all of developmental writing. And that for me was just sort of the piece that I was like, this is great. Like one sheet, here we go. This is pretty. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I do like how easy it is. With the one sheet, like I was saying, I can just keep it on my table and it's there. I feel like often, if they're not writing and if we are in a hurry, we're often scribing for them and they are copying it. And sometimes I feel like we get in that rut of, just letting them copy their, it's their words, but they're not getting that act of, thinking about their own sentence and creativity. So yeah, I'd like it too, for that quick and easy reminder. So
I do actually have a question. So the student that you shared, and I can reshare my screen here, but the student that you had shared that was using the voice typing with the microphone, essentially voice dictation. I just was wondering, so for that student, I'm guessing that if you were to scale that student's writing, I forget what the number you referred, that one would probably be like a 13 or, something in that range. Like if you didn't have that tool for that student, just out of curiosity, could you tell us just like where you think that student would be maybe without that tool?
That's funny you asked that because we did a comparison. I don't think it was on this same session. And we just showed his family at his IEP, and it's like night and day. When he was printing, he wrote maybe 1 or 2 sentences. He had I think he was writing quickly, so there was some letter formation. It was a little tricky to read. Yep. The sizing of the letters, but when he typed it and on and he added a graphic to his typed work, and he's just really proficient that way.
Yeah, it was like almost 3 times as much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it looked so much nicer. Yeah, I think there were a lot of reversals, and it definitely wasn't in a paragraph format.
So he was maybe at a 8.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say, Tara?
Yeah,
Maybe, yeah, at like an
8 or
8-ish
9 maybe.
printing, and then he was like 13 or 14 when he was typing.
Mm.
So it was pretty. It was a pretty big difference.
Yeah.
Cool. That's remarkable. Yeah. So that's neat. And I'm glad to hear that in that training. I've not watched the full trainings yet, that she talks about those alternative pencils and different methods of writing that aren't just physical handwriting with a pencil. So cool. Thanks for sharing that piece. All right. Who else has thoughts, questions, experiences to share? How you think you might do this?
Did you happen to say how long the video is on Infinitech?
I think it's like 50 to 60 minutes, but you can pause it. Like I watched maybe 10 minutes of it, and then I had to, go do some other things, and then I came back to it. And there are 2 parts to it. I have not viewed the second part yet, but the first part was enough to get me going.
And how did you find it on Infinitech, or did that come with the email?
Julie Ray sent out an email and a link to these sessions, and
because there's so many good things on there's so many good things on Infinitech. It's just hard to find in the time.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, of course, they've got good search features on Infinitech. So if you knew that you were looking for developmental writing scale, you definitely can find that on there. But if you don't quite know what you're looking for, you can look within topics. But you're right, there's so many good ones on there that if you can have someone like Terry and Tara be like, I watched this one, it was great. And then be able to search up that specific one, that's really helpful. So, yeah. And just a reminder too, on Infinitech, you do get CEUs for that. So for a 50 to 60 minute video, you get 1.25 CEUs for it. So just know that that's also a little perk of using that system. All right, and Krista just shared with us in the chat window, both parts 1 and 2 are each 56 minutes. How's that for consistency? Beautiful. All right, what else?
I think that's all I have.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, great. Well, we can hang around for a little while longer. I'll go ahead and stop recording, but if people have more thoughts, questions, comments, thoughts about how